All right, guys, page 4. And we're getting kind of into a lot more of the legalese, but hang with me. We need to know what the purchase agreement says. So let's start. Paragraph 24 is default. What happens if the buyer were to walk away for any other reason other than what the purchase agreement allows? Or what if the seller were to walk away for any other reason than what the purchase agreement allows? So, default, paragraph 24A, buyer. In the event that the buyer fails to fulfill obligations set forth herein or fails to close the transaction in the time and manner provided, sellers may elect to enforce the terms hereof. They could declare the sale void and retain the earnest money deposit, per paragraph 9, as liquidated damages, and or seek all available legal or equitable remedies. The one thing I want you to know, guys, with this particular paragraph is that it is a myth in real estate that a buyer can simply walk away and forfeit their earnest money deposit and never have any additional things come against them. Well, that's wrong. And it is because of what the law does, and in specific, it's an alert to the buyer that, look, if you do this, here's all of what could happen. But I want you guys to know that a simple forfeiture of the earnest money deposit is not the worst case scenario. It could be a whole lot worse. Now, what about if the seller were to default? In the event the seller fails to fulfill the obligation set forth herein or fails to close this transaction in the time and manner provided, buyers may elect to enforce the terms herein, declare the sale void, be entitled to refund of earnest money deposit, per paragraph 9, and or seek available legal or equitable remedies. Now, one of the things that you will hear more about when it is a seller who's defaulting, more so than a buyer, is the term specific performance. It would be where we're telling this individual that they are going to have to live up to the terms of the agreement. Otherwise, perform specifically to the terms of the agreement. Hard for that to happen with a buyer unless if that's a cash deal, but definitely much more likely with a seller than it would be a buyer. But no, that's what paragraph 24 is all about. Paragraph 25 is simply letting people know that there are additional documents attached. So the seller's disclosure statement, the lead-based paint disclosure, agency relationship disclosures, plus the following items are also attached to this purchase agreement. These are all of the, we'll call it common addendums with a general one, but swimming pool, condominium, well, septic, contingent home sale addendum, vacant land. Anyway, bottom line becoming this, you're going to check all of the appropriate addendums that you'd be attaching to the purchase agreement. Paragraph 26 is flood insurance. This is relatively new to purchase agreements, but I think you're going to find it more and more common. And it's simply this, that the buyers may at their expense obtain a flood certification within, guys, coordinate this with the property inspection. Typically this is 10 days or less. As for the same thing we're going to talk about shortly on paragraph 28, 10 days or less, and it's calendar days, not business days, not banking days, but calendar days. From the date of the seller's acceptance of this agreement, if the certification discloses that the property is a special flood hazard area, buyers may notify sellers in writing within blank days from the date of certification. There's no need for that to be more than 3 days. The buyers declare this agreement null and void, and the deposit shall be returned to the buyers. This is a key part. Failure to notify the sellers that the property is in a special flood hazard area within that same time period shall constitute a waiver of the buyer's right to terminate this agreement. Otherwise, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you didn't tell us, so you're moving forward. It is a removal of this contingency. Paragraph 27 is the well and septic. Guys, what we know is if ever there's a well and septic, we absolutely want the buyer to have these items inspected. Now, here's what we know. Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, Washtenaw, Isabella, Ingham, and Shiawassee are counties in where we do business, where we know there are municipalities or the entire county that may require or do require that there be a well and septic inspection if one or both exist with this property. I can tell you that Macomb and Washtenaw, two counties where it is absolutely required. The others, there's going to be the municipalities that will require it. What you're going to need to do is to talk with your broker, manager, and find out where in the areas that we do business are we required to get these inspections done. Now, regardless of whether or not it's required by a municipality, guys, I'm going to tell you, if you are properly representing a buyer, you're going to tell them that they should have this done, and if for some reason they're going to waive it, I'm going to put it on the purchase agreement that it was recommended and the buyers declined. That's just taking care of ourselves, taking care of the buyers to make sure they understand the importance. Number 28, this is the inspection, and I want you to know that it says due diligence. So it's not just the results from a certified home inspector walking through the property, but all due diligence. Here's what it states. Inspections required by FHA, VA lenders, or municipalities are not made for, nor should they be relied upon by the buyer. It's a heads up, a warning that Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, these ones are not done for your protection. They're much more basic and they're only looking for a few things. So it's coming right out and saying, as brokers, we recommend that the buyer conduct independent private inspections of the property at their own expense. Due diligence may include, but is not limited to, any inspections or research deemed necessary by the buyers. Now that could include structural integrity, condition of mechanical systems, environmental status, health or other conditions, safety conditions, surveys, infestation. Guys, it could even be that, look, I want to find out what the taxes are going to be. To ensure the intended use of the premises, it is recommended the buyer research square footage, building and use restrictions, easements, ordinances, regulations, school district, and or even the property tax status. Basically, you can check everything. If the buyer does not notify the sellers in writing within blank calendar days. Now, if the buyer does not notify, this is typically 10 days or less. 10 calendar days from the date of the final acceptance of the agreement that the buyer is dissatisfied with the results of due diligence, then the agreement shall be binding. If they don't respond, if they don't say we are dissatisfied, and we're going to talk about what their options are here shortly, but if they don't come back and say we're dissatisfied, guys, they have a binding agreement and they are moving forward to closing. Boy, do we need to know and understand that. All right. Shall be regarded, so here we are. If buyer notifies the seller in writing and within the specified time, so notice what it says, if the buyer notifies the sellers in writing within specified time, then in the buyer's sole judgment, the buyer is dissatisfied with the results of the due diligence, buyer shall do one or a combination of the following within that contingency period stated above. So guys, A, B, C, and D are the options. Option A, present to the sellers an amendment for mutual agreement that cites a list of repairs or conditions to be remedied. Guys, if they're truly about a concern as to the condition of the property, A is one of the best things that they could do, because it says, seller, I want to buy your house, but these things need to be taken care of. Now, that's showing the buyer's true interest, that we're concerned about these things. However, it may not be the best thing for the seller. So B might be another option. Present to the sellers an amendment for mutual agreement with a credit to be applied against the purchase price and or a reduction in the purchase price in full satisfaction of the inspection contingency. Now, I will share with you that often I want to show that the buyer sincerely is interested in buying the property, but they want the things that they've found repaired. That's A. But to say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we are truly wanting the property, but we'll give you an option. We'll either do A or we'll do B. And then we write 2 addendums stating that we're dissatisfied with the results. Here's what we want done. And another one that says, we'll take this credit. It's up to you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. You can have A or B. And they would sign the appropriate addendum if they are agreeable. Now, here's option C. Present to the sellers a notice of dissatisfaction with the due diligence, which shall render the agreement null and void. In which case, seller agrees to authorize the broker to return all earnest monies to the buyers. Otherwise, we had A or B, but now the buyer has C. And C is simply, yeah, we found things we didn't like. We're out of here. And we turn in a notice of dissatisfaction. Yes, that must be in writing. I want you to know it doesn't say that we have to tell them what we were dissatisfied with. It just says that we have to provide a notice of dissatisfaction, not what we found that caused us to be dissatisfied. Now, we need to know about option D, because the buyer may not choose C. They may present A or B, or A and B. But here's what D says. In the event sellers and buyers are unable to reach an agreement to the buyer's proposal made under A or B, buyer shall either elect to proceed with the transaction by waiving this contingency in writing. Otherwise, just because they proposed A or B doesn't kill the offer. If the seller is not in agreement, the buyer can proceed with the property by simply removing the contingency and moving forward to closing. Now, the other option is, if they don't agree, declare the agreement void by election of C within 3 calendar days of receipt of seller's written responses to A or B. So guys, paragraph 28 is extremely important that you understand the detail to it. This is where your negotiating skills need to be very, very strong. Now, big key, make sure that you have the buyer's initial the appropriate response. We should almost always, now I'm not talking 9 out of 10 times, I'm talking like 99 out of 100. They should be doing an inspection. It's a rare circumstance where they would have done a thorough enough inspection when they looked at the property to be able to waive doing a property inspection. Just not a wise decision, and if they do, I'm having them sign a statement that they did this against the direction of me, their agent. Let's go to paragraph 29. Liability of the buyer for damage to the property. Buyers shall be solely responsible for any and all damages due to the property as a result of any and all inspections of the property, authorized by or conducted by the buyer. Buyer shall pay for any and all necessary repairs to restore property to its condition prior to inspections, or shall reimburse the sellers for actual cost of restoration. I think, guys, that's plain language, simply described. Nothing for me to expand upon there. Paragraph 30, municipal inspections. If a municipal inspection and/or certification of premises are required by local ordinance, state or federal law, seller agrees to pay for those inspections. So in the metropolitan Detroit area, as an example, I can tell you that Westland is one of those areas where it is required that upon the transfer of property that there be an inspection and that any repairs found on that need to be taken care of. Well, this is simply saying that the seller will pay for the inspections. Doesn't mean that they need to pay for the required repairs. That is something that the buyer and the seller can agree to. Bottom line becomes this: you need to learn what it is or what municipalities in your area actually do require a municipal inspection and for what. All right? Seller agrees to complete any and all repairs required by the municipality provided repairs do not exceed. Hopefully they've already been done. This is a point of negotiation. It's going to depend upon the property. It's going to depend upon what's the buyer and the seller willing to agree to. What can the buyer take care of? What could the seller take care of? It's just one of those that you really need to learn for your local area. If the seller does not complete all repairs required by the municipality, buyers may assume the additional cost to complete repairs, or buyers may declare this agreement void. So the buyers may assume those additional costs or declare it void. So the agreement by itself is saying, seller, you pay for it, and seller, you complete any and all repairs that does not exceed this amount. Again, you just need to know what this paragraph truly is saying when municipal inspections are required. Number 31, buyer acceptance of condition. It's in its as-is condition. It's pretty much a standard. This is more of a warning. You're buying it as you're finding it, and you're buying it regardless if you decide to move forward and close. And this is what it's stating. By closing this transaction, buyer shall be deemed to have accepted the property in its as-is condition, and it shall be deemed by closing this transaction that the buyer is satisfied with the condition of the property. Look, if they find something else the day that they get to the house with the keys, too late. That's what this says. Time for legal action. Buyers and sellers agree that any legal action against either party or against brokers or their agents related to the condition of the property or arising out of the provisions of this agreement or any services rendered or not rendered. That's a lot of stuff to get to this point. You're going to file any legal action against anybody for those reasons. It has to be within the shorter time of A, the time provided by law, or B, 6 months after the closing, or forever be barred from bringing action. Just that simple. Here's one to remember because this will come up. Our purchase agreement states that upon acceptance, seller agrees that the property will be marked pending and no further showings will be allowed. So it doesn't matter what the multiple listing service allows. The purchase agreement, our purchase agreement, says, seller, no more showings, and you mark it pending. That's the bottom line, because the purchase agreement rules, not what the rules of the multiple listing service are. That brings us to an end of page 4. Let's take a break. We'll see you shortly, coming back for page 5.